On a cold Bavarian night, a cruel act awakens something older than the town itself. The fog rolls thick over the cobblestones, clinging to the timber frame houses like a shroud. In the marketplace, gas lanterns flicker, casting long, dancing shadows that twist and writhe on the wet pavement. It's a night where history feels heavy, where the air itself seems to hold its breath, waiting. A single church bell tolls in the distance, a lonely, mournful sound swallowed by the mist. This is a place of secrets, and tonight, one of them is about to be unearthed. His name is Kurt Weber, a man feared by many, respected by none. He moves through the empty square with a drunkard swagger, the bitterness of his life etched into the lines on his face. He is a man who believes himself untouchable, a king in his own miserable kingdom of shadows and cheap ale. It is then he sees it, a small, shivering form huddled by the overflowing trash bins. A starving stray dog, its ribs showing, its eyes wide with a mix of fear and desperation. The cold has seeped into its very bones, but it's the cruelty of this town that has truly broken its spirit. Kurt stops, a sneer twisting his lips. He looks down at the creature, not with pity, but with a contempt he reserves for anything weaker than himself. "Dirty mutt," he slurs, his voice a harsh rasp in the quiet night. This town isn't yours. There is no reason for his anger, no logic to his cruelty, only a deep-seated ugliness looking for an outlet. He draws back his heavy boot, the worn leather dark with grime. The world seems to hold its breath in that split second before the impact. The kick connects with a sickening thud. The dog yelps, a sharp cry of pain that is quickly cut off as it slams against the cold metal of a trash bin. The clang echoes through the deserted square. Kurt just laughs, a short, brutal sound without an ounce of humor. He turns and continues on his way, leaving the whimpering animal to its fate, already forgetting the casual act of violence. But the night does not forget. In a dark alley nearby, a pair of amber eyes flash open, glowing with an ancient predatory light, and the night stops breathing. The lantern flames, which had been dancing in the breeze, suddenly flicker and then steady, as if frozen in time. The fog thickens, coiling into an impenetrable wall of white. The darkness in the alley deepens, becoming absolute, a void from which no light can escape. Within that void, the suggestion of a huge silhouette begins to form, a shape that defies the natural order of things. The only clear feature is those two amber eyes, unblinking, fixed, and burning with a cold, patient fury. A low, guttural rumble vibrates through the ground, a sound felt more than heard, a promise of retribution. Kurt staggers home, oblivious. He weaves through the narrow, crooked streets, the timber frame houses leaning in as if to watch him pass. He is a man sealed in his own world of drunken haze, unaware that he is no longer alone. But something is different. The shadows seem to move with a purpose now, drifting along the rooftops, stretching and contorting in unnatural ways. From high above, something is watching him, its perspective patient, its movement silent. Justice wakes and follows. A faint creak of a roof tile, the barest scrape of a claw on slate, sounds lost to the wind for anyone but the one being hunted. He finally reaches his small, dilapidated room, the feeling of being watched now a prickling sensation on the back of his neck. He slams the door, his heart hammering against his ribs. He arms himself, grabbing an old, rusted shotgun from a dusty table, as if iron could stop a verdict that has already been passed. He stands in the center of the room, lit by a single, trembling candle flame, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Show yourself," he shouts, his voice a pathetic mix of bravado and terror. The handle on his door begins to twitch, slowly, then more violently. A cold mist, impossibly thick, begins to spill from under the door, pooling on the floorboards. The rattling stops. In the silence that follows, a silhouette fills the doorway. It is impossibly tall, a towering lupine humanoid figure well over 2 meters, its form cloaked in shadow and wet black fur. Its breath clouds in the frigid air, each exhalation a plume of smoke. Kurt, his hands shaking, raises the shotgun and fires. The muzzle flash illuminates the room for a blinding second, revealing the beast in all its terrible glory. The smoke clears. The creature stands unmoved, the buckshot having done nothing. Its amber eyes lock onto his. Justice never sleeps. The doors are barred, the windows nailed shut. But fear always finds a way in. I remember the sound of the hammer, each strike a desperate prayer against the encroaching dark. Furniture, heavy and solid, scraped against the floorboards, creating a pathetic fortress against something that wasn't bound by walls. The candlelight flickered, stretching shadows into monstrous shapes that danced at the edge of my vision. My own breath fogged the air, a visible sign of the life I was trying so desperately to protect. A stark contrast to the creeping frost that spiderwebbed across the window panes. A touch of the grave from the world outside. And then there was the other sound. A scraping. A slow, deliberate dragging sound that circled the house over and over. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't an animal. It was the sound of something patient, something inevitable. And it was drawing a circle around me, marking me as its own. In the dead of night, silence is a liar. It promises peace but delivers only a canvas for the mind to paint its deepest terrors. I was trying to hold on, trying to tell myself this was just exhaustion, just my mind playing tricks on me. But the feeling of being watched never left. It was a physical pressure, a weight on my skin. I would stand perfectly still, straining to hear, but the scraping would stop, as if it knew I was listening. It was playing with me. I'd retreat from the windows, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs, and try to find a corner of the house where the sound couldn't reach, but it was useless. The sound was already inside my head. The house had become a cage, but I was beginning to understand that the real prison was my own sanity, and the walls were crumbling fast. They say reflections don't lie, they're wrong. Reflections lie last, saving their most terrible truths for when you are at your most vulnerable. I stumbled into the bathroom, the air thick and cold. I just needed to see a familiar face, something to ground me. I leaned over the sink, the mirror fogged from my ragged breath. I wiped it clear, and for a split second I saw it. Not just my own terrified face, but something else, something huge and twisted, looming over my shoulder. Its form was indistinct, a nightmare given shape, but its presence was absolute. A scream tore from my throat and my fist shot out, not in defiance, but in pure, instinctual terror. The mirror exploded, a spiderweb of cracks, then a cascade of glittering shards onto the floor. I looked down, gasping for air, and saw the truth I had tried to shatter. Reflected in every single broken piece, 1,000 tiny amber eyes stared back up at me, unblinking, unforgiving. The whispers started then, not from outside, but from the fragments on the floor. A layered, sibilant chorus that slithered into my ears, too low to make out words, but the meaning was clear. It was a language of accusation, of judgment. I scrambled back, away from the thousand-eyed floor, my hands bleeding from shards I didn't even feel. I pressed myself into the corner of the room, shaking, trying to block out the sound, but it was like trying to block out your own blood pulsing in your veins. It was part of me now. The beast in the mirror wasn't just behind me. It was inside me. The eyes weren't just watching. They were seeing into the darkest corners of my soul, and they were pleased with the fear they found there. The house was no longer a sanctuary. It was a hall of mirrors, each reflection a new torment. I thought I was losing my mind, but then, through a crack in the boarded-up window, I saw him. The dog. The stray I had seen before. The one from that day. He was alive. He was sitting calmly across the street, bathed in the pale morning light. He looked healthy, clean even. He just sat there watching the house. There was an intelligence in his eyes, a calmness that was more unsettling than any snarl. It was the calm of a spectator who knows how the story ends. I, on the other hand, was a wreck. My face, peeking through the curtain, was gaunt, my eyes wide with a sleepless, hunted look. I saw townsfolk walk by. A woman with her groceries, a man walking his own dog. They'd approach. Their gazes would drift towards my house. And then, deliberately, they would look away. Their pace would quicken. It wasn't pity I saw in their fleeting glances. It was something else. Aversion. Fear. As if my house, my very existence, was a sickness they were afraid of catching. The world outside was continuing, but I was no longer a part of it. I was quarantined with my own damnation. The faint, almost imperceptible sound of a choir seemed to hang in the air, a holy sound that felt profane in this context. It was as if the heavens themselves were watching my downfall. The dog didn't move. He just watched. Was he a guardian, a judge, or just a stray? A coincidence my fractured mind had latched onto? No. His stillness was too purposeful. He was a sentinel. He was waiting. For what, I didn't know. But the sight of him so serene in his judgment was more terrifying than the scraping in the night. He was a constant, living reminder that this wasn't just in my head. This was real. The town knew. The dog knew. And I was utterly, completely alone with the thing that was coming for me. The whispers followed me into town. I had to get out, had to get supplies. The hunger was a gnawing beast inside me, almost as bad as the fear. As I walked, the whispers seemed to rise from the cobblestones, to drift from the alleyways, soft, multi-voiced murmurs that coiled around me. Cursed, one would hiss. Justice, another would sigh. I ducked into the bakery, the warmth and the smell of fresh bread a shocking contrast to the cold dread that clung to me like a shroud. I stood at the counter, my hand shaking as I reached for my wallet. And then I saw it, in the reflection of the large window. Behind me, where the empty street should have been, a towering shadow loomed, blotting out the sun. It was immense, its form vaguely bestial, its presence radiating a cold that cut through the bakery's warmth. I snapped my head around. Nothing. The street was empty. A child's bicycle lay on its side. A few leaves skittered across the pavement. But there was nothing there. Just the empty, sunlit street. My breath caught in my throat. The clink of my cup as the baker set it down sounded like a gunshot in the sudden silence of my mind. The warmth of the shop felt like a lie, a thin veneer over a chilling reality. The world was splitting in two, the bright, ordinary world everyone else lived in and the shadow world that was now my own. The reflection wasn't a trick of the light. It was a glimpse into the world that was layered over mine, the one the whispers came from, the one where the shadow waited. The baker was looking at me, his expression unreadable. Did he see it too? Or did he just see a man on the edge of collapse, haunted by ghosts only he could see? He averted his gaze, busying himself with wiping the counter. He knew. They all knew. And they were leaving me to it. Every cruelty returns home. It's a law of nature, as certain as gravity. That night, I was drawn back to the town square. I don't know why. Maybe I was tired of running. Maybe some part of me knew it had to end here. The square was empty, lit by the cold, indifferent glow of the street lamps. But as I stood there, they began to appear. A phantom circle of figures, shimmering and out of focus at the edge of my vision. The ones I had wronged, the ones I had hurt. They weren't angry. They weren't vengeful. They were just there, a silent audience to my final act. And beyond them, standing like a great dark judge, was the beast. The shadow from the reflection, the horror from the mirror, now given solid, terrifying form. It was a creature of knotted muscle and ancient malice, and its amber eyes burned with a cold, righteous fire. The layered whispers that had haunted me for days swelled into a roaring crescendo, a tidal wave of accusation and despair. The weight of it all, the weight of my life, my choices, my cruelty, came crashing down on me. My legs gave out. I fell to my knees in the center of that phantom circle, a sob tearing from my soul. The whispers hit their peak, and then a deep, resonant bass note struck like the tolling of a final bell. And everything cut to black. 3 weeks passed under the watchful eye of the full moon. Then the summons arrived. It wasn't a letter, not a knock on the door. It was a sound, a long, mournful howl that cut through the silence of the town square. Kurt heard it. He knew it was for him. He grabbed his shotgun, the cold steel a poor comfort, and followed the lone dog that walked purposefully toward the center of the empty square. He was being called to answer for what he'd done. As Kurt stepped into the moonlight, the shadows coalesced. It rose before him, a terrifying silhouette of muscle and wet, black fur. Long claws scraped against the cobblestones, throwing sparks into the night air. But it was the eyes that truly froze him, intelligent, ancient, and filled with a profound sorrow. Standing face to face with this impossible creature, all of Kurt's bravado shattered. His voice, barely a whisper, broke the silence. "I know," he choked out. "I know what I did." Panic took over. He raised the shotgun and fired, once, twice, again and again. The blasts echoed uselessly as the bullets passed through the beast like smoke, harmless and insignificant. A voice ancient and resonant echoed not in the square but inside Kurt's own mind. "You are judged." A massive, impossibly sharp claw descended, not to tear but to rest gently on his shoulder. The touch was electric. His mind exploded with a strobe of images. Every cruel act, every victim's face, every scream he had caused flashed before his eyes in rapid, sickening succession. The vibrant colors of his memories drained away, leaving only the stark, cold reality of his actions in monochrome. The weight of it all was too much. His legs gave out and he collapsed to the stone, sobbing uncontrollably, a broken man finally confronting his own soul. Just as the beast's judgment seemed final, the small dog, the silent witness, stepped between them. It looked up at the towering creature, its presence a quiet plea. The beast's voice rumbled again, softer this time, laced with a strange, solemn mercy. "The dog shows more compassion than you ever did. Live, and carry it." The great claw lifted from Kurt's shoulder. As the moonlight seemed to gather around the small dog, creating a halo of light, the beast receded, melting back into the shadows as a thick fog rolled in to reclaim the square. A single distant bell tolled, and then only silence remained. When the morning sun cast its golden light over Dunkelwald, the square was empty, save for a broken shotgun lying on the damp cobblestones. Beside it, imprinted in the soft soil, were massive claw prints, a testament to the night's visitor. The townspeople, who had heard the commotion but dared not interfere, began to emerge. They spoke in hushed tones, their eyes drawn to the small dog that now kept a silent watch over the square. Someone quietly placed a bowl of fresh water near it, a small offering for the Watcher. Here in this town, the lesson was clear. Cruelty always has a price, and justice never ever forgets. Be kind, be just. The night sees everything,